Hey everyone, my name is Emily Steffen and I have a super fun project that I'm so excited to share with you today. We are celebrating Christmas in July, which might feel out of the ordinary, but it's also so fun to do these holidays traditions and make some holiday makes, some holiday wearables or things, giftables, or things to decorate your house for in the summertime for the Christmas season, or just to get ready for the Christmas season, or to spontaneously celebrate your favorite holiday season. So I came across what is called a free motion couching foot for my sewing machine. And this is what I'm very excited to show you today. I want to show you my tips and tricks on how to use it, but I also want to share with you how to make this super cute tufted. It kind of is like a fake tufting effect with the yarn, with the couching foot, Christmas tree bag. And this I made into a little purse for my daughter. You can keep it a simple zipper pouch. If you've tuned in any other lives or seen any other patterns by me, you know I love zipper pouches because we have collections of things all over our house. And so I thought, why not have a Christmas little zipper pouch or something that's a little bit maybe more holiday season that you could use even into January or February if it's super cold like it is here in Minnesota. So the bulk of what I'm going to be showing you today is this couching foot because I really want to give you all the tips and tricks. Now, if you don't have one, do not tune out because I feel like there's multiple ways that you can still make this project without having that foot. I'll give you different ways to adapt the pattern. I love my Janome sewing machine, so the brand I have is Janome, but I know this for a fact, that most other large name or large brand sewing machines have their own version of a couching foot. It looks like this, and it has like a little head area, and then it's like this little kind of opening with a circle. And so if it's not called a couching foot for your specific brand, it might be called something different. It's free motion, meaning we can move about freely on our machine. But this is the Janome. This also works with Elna. Elna and Janome are interchangeable often. And I have a machine where I can drop my feed dogs. That is key to making sure that it's free motion. Feed dogs are those things at the very base of your machine that kind of work together and they go like this and they feed the fabric through. So I'm going to show you about all of that. But in case it's not called a couching foot for your brand, which I believe most of them are, it's a foot head with like a little whole part. It's a really, really bad description, but you'll see kind of the functionality of it as I show you how we get to using it. But first, I want to tell you a couple things. One, the downloadable pattern for this exact pattern is in the description or in the comments. It's in a link. It's just a PDF for you to download. It has all the written description notes, and then it also has the tree shape for us to kind of cut and work with today. Also, I want to hear any questions you have because I feel like if this is new to you or if you have any questions about zippers or sewing machines or sewing or anything, if I can't answer it, I guarantee somebody else in our community can, because it's what's cool about these live events is that we're kind of all coming together and working together and sharing all of our tips and tricks. So I see we have a few people chiming in where they're tuned in from, which is really fun. Michigan, I see. Okay, so first step is first though. When you're using something like a couching foot, I decided to use a heavier fabric for my outside simply because I'm using yarn today and I just have these random 3 colors of green yarn that I found in my basement in my stash because we all have random yarn stashes, or most of us probably do from our crafting world. And in order to keep that sort of thickness and bulk of yarn, I wanted to make sure that I don't even know what this is. It's not even a full canvas. It's thicker than a cotton, but not as thick as canvas. I'm honestly not even sure where I got it. But just know in your brain when you're picking a fabric, for the outside, you want it to be substantial enough to be able to withstand kind of the weight of the tufting or of the bulk of that. Cotton could totally work. I've just never done this on cotton before, and I feel like it works really well in thicker fabric. So when you download the pattern, it is going to be 2 separate pieces when you print it on 8.5 by 11, and all you have to do is match up the lines and tape this together to get your full tree, because the tree itself is bigger than 8.5 by 11, so that's just kind of the workaround for it. So the very first step, and again, this is all written out in the instructions on the PDF, but the very first step is to cut your outside fabric and your lining fabric from this outer tree, because this is like the outer and then this is the inner, and you'll see why it's like that in a second. So I'm going to show you wherever my weights are here. Here we go. I'm going to show you how I cut or use this pattern, kind of they're like my little notes as I was kind of doodling this out on how I make this happen. And also, I would love to hear if anybody's used a couching foot before and what you've used it for. I came across it because I love to doodle, and I was like, this seems like a way to doodle on fabric, and it sure is. So that was kind of my moment where I fell in love with it, and I kind of doodled a giant smiley face on the back of one of my daughter's corduroy jackets, and that is what got me turned on to this foot, and I love it. So I'm cutting out the outside here. I'm just cutting through two fabrics, the front and the back, just like any other zipper pouch. If you want to use rotary tool, use rotary cutter. If you don't want to pin, don't pin. I am a very do what feels great kind of crafter. So cutting through thick fabric always sounds so satisfying too. Okay, so I have my front and back. If you want to do this on green fabric, that actually could be really cool too. So front and back right here. And what you'll do next is just on the paper piece itself, you will want to cut out, I've already done this just because it is a little bit time consuming. You'll want to cut out the 3 different sections, because these 3 different sections are going to denote or note or mark where the 3 different sections of the tree are. Now, if you don't want to make this 3 different sections of the tree, then don't make 3 different sections of the tree. If you do not have a couching foot, you can 100% applique on 3 different pieces of green fabric or purple fabric or pink fabric or whatever to make your tree. So don't let not having a couching foot stop you, because as we're marking this off, right, because we're just going to mark off where our sections are, you could do the exact same by cutting out 3 different pieces of fabric. You can use interfacing if you'd like to make sure that you have the different sections. You don't have to use interfacing to iron it on, but applique will be your friend if you want to make this without having a couching foot. So this kind of acts as a stencil, because we have this inner thicker line, and then we have the 2 kind of droopy lines that make sure that this is broken up into 3 pieces, and that is what I've cut out. So I'm going to, kind of like a puzzle in a very rough way, because crafting is not perfect, use my pencil or a fabric marker or a quilting pen or whatever you want to use, and kind of mark out where we are going to do our tree. Now, you 100% do not have to do this, but I feel like when I get to couching on my machine, it is a little bit tricky to pay attention to where my shapes are, because I'm so focused on something so close. It's the same as if you're like painting a wall or something. When you're up really close, you're not paying attention at like the big scope. So this just helps you stay within the lines. So I marked off my top, and then I'm going to, mark off my, I'm going to do this. Mark off my bottom, or my middle, excuse me. And then remove this and just mark off my bottom here. Ta-da! So now I have, you can kind of lightly see it, my top, middle, and bottom, and I can set my pattern pieces aside. Like I said, if you're appliquing, then those are your 3 applique pieces, and you can follow along with the zipper pattern, just kind of removing this couching step. Okay, my back, I'm just going to set this aside right over here. And I didn't mention, I already did pre-cut my lining just so that that is all ready to go when I need it. There's my front. There we go. Okay, so the couching foot is essential. I'm going to explain it to you for those of you that are like thinkers, and then I'm going to show you for those of you that are visual like me. But this is what it looks like. It comes, most of them come with 2 different plastic pieces. They are for the depth or the thickness of the material that you will couch onto your fabric. You can couch rope, thin rope, so twine, you can couch ribbon, you can couch yarn, you can couch embroidery floss, anything that can fit within these little holes right here. It's kind of really hard to see because this is clear, but there's a hole right here, and I'm using, I think it's 7mm and 9mm. I believe that's what they come with. It doesn't say on my package. I believe it's 7. I think most of them standard come with 7mm, 9mm. I don't actually know off the top of my head how large that is, but what you can do to test is, I'm using yarn, and you can test just to make sure that your material or your substrate goes into this little hole. Because in theory, what's going to happen? You're still threading your machine, and all you're going to do is set your machine to a zigzag stitch. So I'm going to show you right here. If this is your yarn, right? This is your couching foot. This hand is my couching foot. Your needle is, in theory, just going to zigzag stitch right over top of your yarn to keep it in place. And your hands, my hands, as I'm moving across the sewing machine, are going to move it as if I'm kind of drawing on my fabric. And I chose to draw a tree pattern. You can choose to draw a boot or a shoe or a kayak or I don't know, anything you want on a piece of fabric. That's kind of the idea of this. So if you have questions as I'm going, pipe in with the questions, and I'm just going to tell you that I'm not perfect at this, but I'm going to give you my tips and tricks that have made this work for me. So first thing is to choose your colors, of course, of the yarn you want. I have found that when you choose your yarn colors, it works super well to choose coordinating thread, because what you likely don't want to happen if you're using black yarn or black ribbon or black something is you don't want white zigzag stitching over top, because it's kind of going to take away from the dark color of what you're trying to adhere to it. So I like to match my thread as best as possible. So I have just green thread that's already loaded. I pre-did some of this just so that we won't take all day forever, ever, amen. But I'm going to use this kind of middle of the road grass green for the middle of our tree. And this thread is not exact, but it's pretty darn close. So what I'm going to do is thread my machine with my favorite color, just like normal. But don't put it through your needle yet. I'm going to take off the whole entire head, not just the foot. The foot would be this. Whoops, where's my thing? The foot would be this, right? We change these feet out for zipper feet or other various feet, not just the feet. I want to change out the whole entire head. So for me, and you can consult your manual or Google how you take it out, there's a little screw on the side, and I'm taking out the entire head because I'm replacing the entire head with this thing. So how this goes in for my particular machine, and most of them, I looked it up, and most of them are so similar with minor adjustments, is I'm kind of looping the loopy part of the head, not the foot, the head of this whole thing, and I'm kind of putting it into the same spot, and you're tightening it with your screw, and some people have screwdrivers to get it really tight, but I don't have one today, so this is what's going to happen. You'll notice your needle is right over that hole. So your needle is right over the hole, and that is where your zigzag stitch is going to go. That's why it's important to make sure that your yarn goes into that hole, because you want the yarn or the thread or the ribbon, whatever you're using, to freely move through that hole so that your needle can zigzag stitch through it. So I have threaded the top of my machine. Now I'm threading my needle. I'm going to pop over and make sure there's no questions. There isn't any quite yet. So I have to do two more things. One, lower my feed dogs, because remember, the feed dogs are the things that grab your fabric, and I want to be able to move my fabric wherever I want my fabric to go, which is called free motion. I can move it where I want it to go. And so I need to drop those feed dogs. A lot of times on the side of your sewing machine, there's a lever, and you'll see they go down below into your plate of the needle plate. Second thing I want to do is change my stitch to a zigzag stitch. You can decide if you want really close zigzags or really far apart zigzags. I like to keep it just middle of the road because you're kind of controlling how many stitches are per inch by how quick you're moving, because remember, we're free motion moving it. So I don't know that that matters a whole ton, but perhaps somebody has a tip or a pointer that you think it matters a lot. All right, the key to making sure that this works amazing is a couple different things. One, you want to make sure that you're going semi-slow. You don't want to race through this because remember, we're zigzag stitching the yarn as it goes, right? And because we don't have our feed dogs to regulate kind of the timing of your machine, if I zip right through, my stitches are going to end up super far apart. If I go really slow, my stitches are going to be really close together. So just keep that in mind, that you're not going too slow or too fast. And the other super big pointer is to never, ever, ever let your yarn get stuck or snagged. If you've ever done punch needle before, it's, kind of the rug hooking or the, where you're punching yarn on this needle through fabric. That is the biggest tip with that, and it's the same with this, because what will happen is your needle is still going to keep going, zigzag, zigzag. But if this is at all, has any kind of knot slack to it or any resistance, it's not going to work. And that'll probably happen as I'm stitching today, and you'll see how I fix it. So I'm sure we'll run into many of these problems as I'm going today, and I'm just going to show you kind of as we're going. My yarn now will go through the little hole. All you do is push it through that hole. I'm lowering my foot, which is kind of not really lowered that much because again, we're free motion moving. And now all I'm going to do is start drawing. Just like when you're coloring, I like to outline first and then fill in. I like to make sure that my space looks really filled in. So I've kind of chosen, you could outline first and then go back and forth like this. I don't really love the look of that. So what I do is just kind of make little tiny circles, just little circles. And you'll see that as I'm going. So I'm holding my fabric with my two hands to the side because I want to be able to control it, because remember the feed dogs are down. And all I'm going to do is start stitching. And you're seeing that the yarn is coming through the hole and the needle is going up and down over top of it. So my machine is a little squeaky because it needs to be oiled, so forgive my squeakiness. But all I'm doing is filling in this outline space, making sure my yarn has enough slack to it that it's not taut at all or caught on anything. And this is like, I promise you, you're gonna start doing this and go, oh my gosh, this is the coolest thing ever, because that was my first reaction. This actually works. Look at, isn't this fun? Whoop, I just totally moved because there's no feed dogs there, so just keep that in mind. I like to support both sides of my fabric. I'm sure if I got really good at this, I could just have one hand, but I like to support both sides because sometimes I feel like my fabric can go rogue if I'm not paying quite enough attention. Oh, I can hear that my something is stuck underneath. There we go. So I just want to loosen that. Yeah, it got a little bit stuck. But you can see underneath, well, you kind of can't see. All it's doing is adding zigzag stitches underneath. It's actually pretty clean underneath as well. If you ever feel like you're stuck, if you ever feel like something's not working, pause, bring the material out of the machine. You don't even have to cut your yarn, and just reload it, and you can pick right back up where you were before. Whoop! Like, see, this just came out. I don't know if you can tell, this just came out. So I'm gonna do is lift up my needle, lift up my thread or my foot, and then just kind of put the yarn back in that little hole. I feel like it's so satisfying to do because it's like coloring. And okay, so when I was outlining, I want to point this out. I totally screwed up my outline and I kind of cut this corner a little bit weird because I feel like it should be a little bit more rounded, like kind of a billowing tree that's full of snow. But I'm just going to right now kind of go in and fix this and fix my outline. There we go. And add it a little bit more billowy. So the one thing you'll notice too is you can go over the same spot over and over again, and all it's going to do is make your tufted area more tufted. I don't know that that's actually the right word, because tufting is actually when you're using a needle to make the yarn, in this case, go through the entire thing, and it essentially, we're kind of fake tufting by just having it sit right on the top, but you get the idea. Okay. And once you get going, this is actually pretty fast. The thing I thought was kind of surprising right away when I first started doing this was how much thread. I guess I haven't ever zigzag stitched for long periods of time, but I kept feeling like, oh my word, I have to change my bobbin thread again. I also was doing a really big jacket for my daughter with a big smiley face on the back. And so that I just found a jacket at like a local whatever Target or something and customized it with a smiley face on the back. So the cool thing about this technique, if you do get one of these feet, is that you can make patches, you can make customized shirts or backpacks or anything with this idea, because in theory you're just drawing on fabric with yarn by using a zigzag stitch to make sure that it's attached. I think it's so cool. Okay, I'm almost done with this color. And then I want to show you how to change colors. So I'm trying to keep the same speed of me moving the fabric. This was where I started, so I can just clip this right here. Oop, so that's not in the way. But I'm trying to go the same sort of consistent circles, same size. I mean, it's not perfect, but it sure is fun. Okay, there's a couple questions. I'm going to pause and read some of these questions. Do you have other suggestions, Rita's asking, for using this technique on something other than a purse? Yes. Okay, so as I was saying, I totally, for let's just think about holiday decorations, right, for Christmas in July. You could take anything that's fabric, right? So a tree skirt, a store-bought tree skirt, and you can add the words Merry Christmas on it, or Happy Holidays, or anything sort of store-bought. That's what I did with my daughter's jacket. It was a corduroy jacket, just a plain, like, I think it was orange corduroy jacket. And then I just personalized it essentially by putting the smiley face on the back. I'm going to pause. I have more thoughts on that, but I'm going to pause and show you this. I finished my space. So now all I want to do is, I like to just up and down stitch, anchor my stitch really quickly. Then I'm going to cut the needle, or cut the thread. It's not going to cut my yarn, remember? And look at that, space is done. So we're done with these two colors. And then now I'm on to my last kind of darker green. And when you flip it over, you'll see, like, there's a few spots that my needle got stuck, but all it is just zigzag stitches. So I mean, it's still really flexible. It's not stiff. It's not like you're using interfacing and it's like super hard. It's pretty flexible still. So to change my color, again, I want to match my color, right, to my thread. And okay, here is maybe a really bad example, but I have, here we go. I have a darker green that I'm going to put in my bobbin. And then I have the same darker green, but it is not like super dark. It doesn't really match like super well, but we're just going to go with it because this is what we have. And I love just using up the stuff I have in my sewing room. So I'm changing my thread color. Ta-da! And then just like I did before, all I'm going to do is find the end of my yarn. Oh boy, here we go. End of my yarn. If you know anything about yarn, yarn usually has two sides you can pull from. One that comes out the middle, that's a lot easier to pull. One that goes around the edge. For some reason, I never seem to find the right one, so don't judge me because I'm using the one on the edge. It's just gonna make it more complicated for me. But, okay, my machine is threaded. Now I'm threading my yarn through the hole, whoops, this way, through the hole, and then outline first. So I'm gonna do my outline first. I'm gonna show you how I did that. By starting on an edge, lower my feet, my zigzag stitch is still selected, my feed dogs are still down, so I don't have to change any of that. And I am just going to outline my shape, like you're coloring. Sometimes these corners are a little tricky. But I want the top of my tree to be a point, so I'm just like any other point you're making when you're stitching. I'm going to keep my needle down, pivot. I'm trimming the beginning there, and then keep my needle down, lift my foot, and then go right along the edge here. So now that's outlined, I'm just going to fill in like I did before. So back to that question. The question was, do you have to make something from scratch to use this technique? And I say the answer is absolutely not. Find something that maybe it's a stocking, maybe it's a birthday banner that you want to customize. This is kind of like a tactile way to applique, or a more three-dimensional way to add something to your fabric. My yarn was a little bit stuck there, so I saw that it wasn't coming through all the way. So that's maybe just to get an idea to get your brain going. Or maybe you want to make customized Christmas ornaments and you take a piece of fabric and you do all your family's initials or letters or favorite sports ball or something. I don't know. The cool thing about this is that not only is it very creative because the kind of the sky's the limit, but also whatever colors you're only limited by what you want to make, right? By the shapes and the colors and all those things. So I saw another question come in asking about adding embellishments to the tree to make it look like it's fully decorated. Yes, I would say you can either take your tufting or your free motion couching foot and because you can go right over top what we've already done because it's very secure. You can add bulbs or Christmas lights, or you can even just hot glue some pom-poms on here if you really want to make it look like there's Christmas bulbs hanging off it. You could add a star to the top. You can add sequins. I think that'd be really cute, and that'd be a fun little afternoon with your favorite kid. If you're like, hey, I made this purse, or I have this purse, let's decorate it together. That could be very, very personalized. I did see another comment about pillow, adding a holiday pillow. Happy holidays. Yes. The only thing you're limited by, the only thing I have to say, because I tried doing a sweatshirt, I got stuck because it was a pre-purchased sweatshirt, right, that I found in my closet. I'm like, I'm gonna try this. I got stuck because you have to be able to turn. I felt like I wanted to turn it, and because it was already sewn together, it was a little tricky. I made it work. It made it happen, but it wasn't as easy or straightforward. So maybe just don't try that as your first project until you get the technique down. But yeah, buy cushion covers at your local whatever and then customize them for birthdays or holidays or Halloween or Valentine's Day or whatever. I mean, this is really fun. Yarn painting. That's what I'm going to call it from now on. Yarn painting. Cozy and festive atmosphere using crafts. Oh, Tracy, I love that. She's getting started early. So Tracy is just commenting that she doesn't do a ton of crafting or a ton of decorating for the holidays, but she wants to get started early, which I love. Okay, because this is what Christmas in July is all about. Okay, so this is, whoops, I have yarn or thread everywhere. So this is what it should look like when it's done. It's all tufted, it's all ready to go. I mean, you can see a few spots through here, but I mean, it looks really fun and really festive. And if you want to add all of your decorations, add all of your decorations. Now is the time where we're going to move on to just doing a zipper pouch. And you can make this a simple zipper pouch. You can make this into a purse. We're going to make ours I made this into a purse by adding a strap. For the sake of time, I want to show you the details of adding a zipper to a shape really quickly, because I think there's some tips and tricks in that I want to share. First of all, though, I want to get my cowshing foot off by unscrewing it and wiggle this guy off. Put my regular foot back on, if I can. Oh, whoops, because it wasn't lifted. How's that for working out? Hang on, I took the whole entire screw off. There we go. Screw it on. And again, if you have a screwdriver, you might want to tighten it. And then I'm going to move my yarn out of the way. I'm going to raise my feed dogs back up again. Now, I probably should not admit this. I dropped my sewing machine, and so this lever on the side doesn't work 100% well because I dropped it on the side. And so my feed dogs don't come back up without me just giving a little bit of a gentle push. So you likely don't have to do that, but I'm just in full transparency telling you that I dropped my sewing machine and it stayed intact 100% except for that little lever on the side. I can't like move it back. And now I have to put my stars. I'm just gonna take my foot off. There we go. So now you'll see, it's kind of hard to see. You're gonna see that the little feed dogs are now above the foot plate again, or the needle plate rather, sorry. All right. So, and of course then you want to go back to a straight stitch. So undo what you did, put your regular whole foot and head back on, go back to a straight stitch and raise your feed dogs again, and then we're ready to stitch. So just like if you've watched any other tutorial on how I do zipper pouches, you will know that it's kind of a sandwich technique. But if you noticed on the pattern in the very beginning, you noticed that there was 2 little hash marks on our pattern, because adding a zipper to something that has a shape or a curve or a form to it is a little bit trickier than just adding a zipper. But don't be alarmed, because it's not that tricky. Where's my zipper? Right here. Also, if you've done any zipper patterns with me, you know that I buy plastic zippers and I cut them to size, because I never have the exact zipper that I need, because that's just never how it works in my house. So first thing I want to do is I want to make sure the hash marks on my pattern go from about here to here, because what I think is going to be too tricky is if you bring your zipper down below this like bulging part, it's going to be really hard to open that, because you're going to have to go out and around before you zip up. So I want my zipper to end kind of at the top or the edge of where these are. So give yourself a super duper rough estimate on where your zipper is going to go. So I'm going to move it down just a teeny bit. There we go. So that you know how long it's going to be. Do not do this with metal zippers, because you will break your scissors and your needle. But I do this with plastic zippers basically on the weekly. And all I'm going to do is cut my zipper. But I've lost my stoppy part at the very end, so I'm going to set that aside, and all I'm going to do is go back and forth to add the stoppy part back onto my zipper. You've probably seen me do this a million times if you've watched any other oh, I don't have any bobbin thread in there because I took it out. Here we go. I'm just going to add white because it doesn't quite matter. There we go. Bobbin thread's back in. But I'm just going to go forwards, straight stitch, backwards, straight stitch, forwards, straight stitch, stop, and you'll be amazed at actually how strong that zipper is. So when you do zippers, you're making a sandwich. You're going to go outside right side up, zipper, inside right side down, outside right side up, zipper, inside right side down. So wait, did I say that wrong? No, I did that backwards. Liner, right side up, zipper, And this is a little bit tricky because I want to make sure, okay, that I'm starting it at the right point. Well, this isn't right. I said it right the first time. I'm second guessing myself. Outside, right side, up. I'm second guessing myself. Hang on, let me think for a second. Liner, right side up. Yeah, like this. Yes, right like this. No. Ha! Holy bananas. It's been a day. I'm going, yes, this is how I want it to go. Okay. Liner, right side up. Zipper, outside, right side down. I said it right the second time. Holy cow. Okay, but first what I want to do is I'm going to make sure that my center of my zipper is at the point. This is the most tedious part, I feel like. Make sure that it lines, okay, that lines up right. So what I'm going to do is, hang on. I'm really second guessing myself right now, you guys. It goes like this. This is right. This is right. Ay, 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 ay. It's because it's on a curve that I'm thinking about this far too hard. Yeah, it goes like this. Hello. Outside, right side up. Zipper, liner, right side down. I've made so many of these things, you think that this would be not that hard for me, but apparently, okay, this is about middle. Okay, I like to use the zippy clippy things, the claw clips or whatever they're called, wonder clips, to hold them in place. Which are these guys. I have a question. What are some ways to finish the ends of the zipper to prevent fraying? Well, here's the thing. Zippers likely will not fray because they're like a canvas material. So likely they will not fray. All I worry about is making sure that the stopper is still on there. Which is what I did by going backwards, forwards, backward, forwards. If you want to put like fray check or a little bit of glue on the ends to make sure that it doesn't fray, you can. I've never ever in my life had a zipper fray. The other thing too is that this end of the zipper, I think this is the question, this end of the zipper is going to be tucked inside, so it's not much going to matter that if it frays, although I don't know that I've ever had a zipper fray in my life, but now I'm thinking about that. That's a good question. If you're worried about it, just put some fray check, which is like a clear little tiny bottle of glue-ish sort of stuff, or some Elmer's glue on it, and it'll dry and be just fine. Okay, so this part is where I'm at, is great to answer this question. Gina asks, with a project that has a lot of curves like this, would you say it's more on the difficult side due to the shape? What techniques can I use to sew the curves on something like this neatly? Okay, so curves to me are way easier than points, honestly, because all you have to do is go slow. It feels so complicated, but I promise you, the only thing that is even remotely tricky about this project is literally this top part that I'm doing right now. So here's the thing, it's only because the zipper has bulk to it. So as I'm claw clipping my right side with my zipper and my, the sandwich is the word I'm looking for. See how I'm clipping this all together. The zipper is gonna give you bulk at the very top. So if corners are ever hard, it's because it's bulky and it's because it's just a lot. So here's my point forever and ever, amen. Just go slow. Go slow and do the best you can. So as I'm kind of forcing this around, I'm just gonna clip it in place so that when I sew it, I can go really slow. Because all I'm doing is lining up to make my sandwich. Here we go. There we go. So I can check and make sure, yeah, it's pretty darn lined up. It's not perfect, but it's pretty darn close. If I move that like that, now it is. So all I'm gonna do with my zipper feet, and zipper feet are important just because it doesn't have the sides like a normal foot does, like this, doesn't have the sides, so I'm able to get really close to my zipper with this foot, so I don't take the whole head off. I'm just dropping off that foot and changing on a Janome. It's an E foot, whoop. It's an E foot. I was with an A foot, I believe, or a B foot before. So here, I'm going to answer this question about zippers. Here we go. So I'm going to just stitch this zipper in place, and you'll see that I'm just going to go slow. If you zip around and are sewing like a crazy person, I feel like curves can be so tricky because I feel like it just gets out of hand and it gets really hard. Just like always, I will stop where I find the pull, keep my needle in the pull, you know, like the tab of the zipper, and move it out of the way because it will get in the way and it'll create, of course it's stuck, it'll create a ridge, which I don't want. Okay, so I'm getting up to the point up here and I am just gonna go obnoxiously slow around this point. And if you ever get to a curve and it is feeling really hard, simply do the corner technique, which is leave your needle down, lift up your foot, and just kind of slowly, you know, like 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches. Okay, I'm gonna slowly pivot, a couple stitches. I'm gonna leave my needle down and slowly pivot because that will allow you to get that bulk underneath your machine. There we go. And get around that corner as best as you can. Oh, and then when I get to the end, I just backstitch a little bit. So you'll see here, this is kind of a little cheat, but you'll see here, it's not perfect, it's not a perfect point, but that's the curve that you want. So now I'm going to treat this whole piece as my zipper and again go right side out, or excuse me, right sides, right side up. Outside, right sides up. I am just making this really confusing. Look at the written patterns if I'm confusing you. The written pattern has it perfectly. Outside, right side up, zipper. I'm gonna go like this though. This curve trips me up a little bit. I'm gonna go like this. Here. Right side, outside, right side up, zipper with your right side facing down, and then you're adding your inside. Basically, you're matching your fabrics. This matches and this matches. So again, I'm going to do my absolute best to line up my top corners. Here we go. And I feel like, here, I'm gonna do that first actually. Just pin, claw clip in place. How do you care for a purse like this? That is a great question. I washed my daughter's jacket that had the couching on it, and all I did was wash it in a gentle cycle. Okay, here's my caveat. I know that I'm using a polyester blend yarn. It's not 100% wool. If it's 100% wool, you probably would want to hand wash it because if you're a knitter, you know that if you get 100% wool yarn wet, it's going to shrink because that's how you wool felt something. You agitate it and you shrink it, and that's just how it gets kind of thick. I know that I'm using a polyester blend wool yarn. Like it's like a cotton poly wool tri-blendy sort of something you'd find in a big box store. It's nothing fancy. So I washed Esther's jacket, which has the big, you know, it's a big corduroy jacket and it has the big, huge smiley face on the back of it with this same couching, similar yarn on it. I washed it just in a gentle cycle and set it out on the line to dry outside. It was awesome. And nothing, like maybe there's a few edges that I might have to go in and like snip off, but here's the thing, there's strength in the zigzag stitching over top of this yarn, and it is really, really, really strong. Like it's not gonna come off if you have to, or the whole thing isn't gonna come unraveled if you have to trim a part of the yarn, because the strength is in the zigzag stitching. The strength isn't in the fact that it's just a piece of yarn on fabric, if that makes any sense. So, I mean, I would say whatever the instructions are for your material, I mean, if you're using like a silk ribbon, that might mean different washing instructions. I mean, I don't know how I'll care for this exactly, other than maybe a hand wash if it feels like it's kind of tricky. This fabric has been pre-washed because it's pink, so I know that that's not gonna bleed. Yeah, I hope that answers your question. All right, I'm gonna use my zipper foot and go really slow again and go along my edge, just like I did before. Slowly back stitching at both ends, and when I get to that zipper pull, I'm going to stop and move it out of the way. Okay, here we go. Here I'm at the top again, and I'm going to obnoxiously go really slow. Yeah. Oh, it's going to buckle a little bit, but that's okay. Here we go. Okay, so now I'm at the zipper head part. So I'm going to open this back up again and move this out of the way. Oh, my stars. I always pick the like most inconvenient places to put these because I could do it like in the middle or something, but instead, isn't that par for the course when you're making something? Oh, here we go. Okay, I got it. I want to make sure this, here we go, is like that. I'm going to line that back up again. I shouldn't have removed my claw clip so soon, but I did. I can already tell you that this isn't perfectly lined up, but it is awfully close. So now I have my, right, like, so my zipper, now I can see, I'm just going to move this out of the way, that I can open it right from the very top. And of course, it's not sewn together at all, but this just gives me the idea of like, yes, awesome. If you're choosing, just for the sake of time, I'm not going to go through the purse straps right now, but all you're going to do if you're choosing purse straps is add those in, making sure that the edges go into the inside right here. So I would add, there's notches and little marks on your pattern piece, and those are going to be down here at the end. I kind of played around with where to put them, and it hung correctly if you move them down to this middle tier. So I'm going to do, just for the sake of time, really quickly to show you how I finish this as a zipper pouch. And the only tricky thing is, first of all, open your zipper, because I almost always forget to do that, and then I'm stuck with a thing that's half closed. The only thing that I would tell you about this is this. For the sake of, because it's a wonky shape, normally you're able to open up the zipper and it kind of butterflies out, or the pouch and it butterflies out. In this case, what we're going to kind of do is do inside and then outside, and I'm going to sew right up to the very edge. So I'm going to sew I'm going to open the zipper all the way because this is complicated. I'm going to sew my outsides first. So do you see what I mean? Well, I guess I kind of am able to open it up a little bit more than I thought. Maybe we'll give it a try. When I was testing the pattern, it wasn't laying as flat as possible, but maybe I sewed it better this time. So essentially all we're going to do is match up. You see I've just matched up my fronts and my backs, and I'm going to try and sew it in one swift motion and see what happens. I will leave my inside bottom portion of my lining open because I need to be able to flip it right side out. And I'm just going to clip these as together as I can. It's lining up pretty darn awesome. The part that gets tricky is always the part where the zipper meets the edges. So when I go over this part, you'll see me kind of go back and forth over it. And if you're looking at this going, oh my gosh, zippers scare me, I promise you, give it a try and you will feel like Superwoman for doing it because it's pretty awesome. They're not hard. Okay. I don't know what these clips are called, claw clips, but they make my life so much better because I don't have to pin everything from Olive Tarnation. So I'm going to note, oops, I need to change I don't need my zipper foot anymore. I need my regular straight foot, or A foot, as Janome calls it. I'm going to leave a chunk, I don't know, like 3 inches open right here. I like to generously give myself an inside seam allowance because I don't want anything to rip. So I give myself a good 1/4 inch seam allowance. You might want something different. I feel like this works for me. I'm going to backstitch. I still have green thread and I don't care because it's the inside of my zipper. Maybe you want to match it. Fine. Totally, you do you. Okay, here's another thing about corners. Again, I'm just going to go slow, and what I like to do is curve with my left hand is my non-dominant hand. I think it might be different, I guess, if you are left-handed because sewing machines are generally set up the same way. But I like to kind of lead my fabric The one thing you never, ever, ever want to do concerning curves is you never want to pull from the back here. That's going to screw up the tension in your machine, and it's going to screw up the tension of your stitching, because you want to make your feed dogs in your sewing machine do the work. So I'm just kind of leading and forcing my fabric through in the direction that I'm guiding it, not because I'm like pulling or squishing or doing anything else that feels tricky. Okay, here we are, back and forth to give strength, because Lord knows we will wrench on the zipper. And my seam allowance is not the same as you're probably noticing, and I think that is okay. Some parts are a little thicker than others, and that doesn't bug me. Okay, I'm getting up. This is the part that's going to be tricky. Whoa! Yeah, we'll see how this goes, huh? Oh, yes, it went right over. Okay, great. We're almost done. The end is near. Okay, so the thing I want to do before I flip my zipper pouch right side out is I want to check my seams and make sure all my seams got caught, because I've been known to cut my corners a little close sometimes, and all of a sudden you flip it out and there's a hole, which is no bueno. So another thing with curves is, in order to get rid of the bulk on the inside of your fabric, because you want to turn it out and you want to see all those beautiful curves, is you can either use pinking shears, which are those zigzag cutter scissors, or you can just edge clip to heart's content all the way around, and all that's going to do is get rid of the tension or the bulk of the fabric, so that when you flip it right side out, those edges can be pushed all the way out. But if you've ever tried to like put your fitted sheet on your bed and your corners are not lined up and it doesn't fit correctly and it doesn't go around that corner correctly, it's that same idea, because there's too much fabric, or there's not enough fabric, or it's like stuck. That's essentially what this is kind of like. Whew. This is a good workout on my finger. Pinking shears would do the same. I just feel like I always never know where my pinking shears are. I'm going to switch to these scissors. These are bigger. Okay. It's always the fun anticipation before the very end, right? What is it going to look like? Is it going to turn out? So we will flip this right sides out through the zipper. So right sides out. Probably. And then through, oh. Naturally, when you're trying to turn something really fast, that's when it gets stuck. And then through the zipper. So if you didn't open your zipper in that step when we were sewing it all together, that's where every time I'm like, dang it, I didn't open my zipper. And then you have to try and finagle it open. But now you're just gonna gently, this is where trimming those corners and working slowly around the curves. Look, you're gonna start poking it out, and it has this nice edge on it. And maybe if we talked about tree decorating, maybe you're decorating your tree, after you've completely sewn your purse or your pouch, and you're going to, I don't know, like add your pom-pom decorations or mini little lights with a battery pack. I don't know. That could be really fun. Okay, so this is as poked out as I can get it right now. But Oh, look at. And the zipper is all great and wonderful. So the only thing I have left to do, this very, very, very last step, is pull your outside or your inside out again and stitch closed the bottom. I don't really care if this is perfect. I'm not that kind of crafter. So if you really want to make your seam absolutely perfect, you can iron it closed and then stitch it. All I do is kind of finger press the seam along what would be the stitch seam, so you can just make a straight line, and then all I'm going to do is top stitch. So bring my machine back over and just quickly, again, I have green thread in, but it's the inside bottom of the purse, and I don't really think anybody's going to be looking inside there. Perhaps they will, but, and here we go. So there we have it, an introduction to couching. I hope I inspired you with our couching. I hope I inspired you to get excited and creative for the holidays. And look, here we go. We have our little zipper pouch that is either a purse or a pouch, and now we can put our endless holiday treasures in it. Thanks for joining us, and a big happy Christmas in July.